Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weiry.
Also joining us is Evgeni.
Hi, I'm Argent. And last time I had a topical show and tell. This time I don't have a topical show and tell. I have something that has nothing to do with the episode. But I bought this tasting set of Belveni's whiskeys. So it's like 3 bottles. They're different ages and different casks and things like that. And they're meant to be like you pour them in like glasses next to each other, and so you are smelling them and tasting them next to each other, so you can better pick up on the differences between them.
See, if it was really topical, you'd have a black hole that warps space-time. That would be very topical from our last episode.
And I also have another tasting set from Glenmorangie, which, very much. So I'm looking forward to trying these, but not on stream because I want to take time to actually appreciate them. Yeah.
Also joining us, not on the side of lasting integrity anymore, is Marvin. You're in the corner.
I'm Pelio, and I could show something topical because I still have a customs notice lying around. But
don't show personal information on the show.
Nope.
Don't do that. That sounds like a bad idea. But that would be topical. Anyone who hasn't seen the last episode's very confused right now.
So listeners,
so what are you doing here?
Yeah, if you are here and you're listening to the part 2 of a thing and you haven't listened to part 1, why are you listening to part 2?
We want to be nice. If they clicked on this video, part 2s inherently get less views. So if they clicked it, we need to be nice to them. So
also, it's not like this. You need to watch part 1 to understand what's going to happen in part 2.
Just our jokes. But last time on WoBs, we talked about avatars and slivers and Sel's Cognitive Realm,
and gravity.
There will be more of those, actually. So that is just fine. So how about we get straight into it here? And speaking of avatars, we cut the episode, but this was going to be our next one. But Zelriel asks, is Nightblood considered a sliver after what happened in Rhythm of War? Brand says, by some definitions. It says tenuous. I would say for the most part, no. Some people might in-world disagree because slivers are it's a moving target, but Nightblood shuts off pretty quick in terms of the amount of investiture that would come through something like that. And so while he did get a piece of that, technically anything he eats is a piece of a shard. I'm going to say no with room for debate. And I personally think that makes a lot of sense because, Nightblood's not holding the infinite power of a shard, right? Which is the definition Brandon said earlier, but Sliver's probably the weirdest to define, I'd say.
It's the fuzziest.
I do find it interesting that Brandon calls slivers a moving target, and so it makes me wonder if there is a world where you can have 60% of the power of a shard pass through you, and so it still introduces a physiological effect on your spirit web. Yes, Eric.
And those people who get those and then release them, those are avatars. No, not really, but I wanted to make an avatar joke, but it's it's picking less than a whole shard up. There you go.
I'm glad we've gotten that out of our system.
Yeah, great. We're starting strong.
But no, as I was speaking, it occurs to me that anyone who's ever picked up the Well of Ascension has probably had a similar experience. So
they are termed slivers, yeah.
Yeah, so being a sliver is not about ascending and then descending, so to speak. It's about having held enough investiture. It doesn't need to be 99 percentile investiture, but enough investiture to change your spirit web in a meaningful way, probably. Long term.
But more than a savant.
but probably more than Sel-phones.
Moving target. There you go. Oh, the Cosmere. When Brandon's like, there's room for debate. It's like, okay, why don't we move on?
That's why we have this show.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next question is from Snowday, please.
You're not having those.
Eshonai's one experience as a mate was a disaster. And Relane's time in mate form didn't turn out the way he expected. Is that implying what I think it's implying? Brandon, no. They're implying different things. With Relane, it's just that it turned out he was solely attracted to other men. Not a disaster, just not what he had anticipated. And Eshonai, I'm not implying the same thing there. I'm implying that when she did take mate form, she just did not like being in that form. It did not mesh well with her. She embarrassed herself in ways that Eshonai outside of mate form considers that entire time an enormous disaster and a huge embarrassment. Does that make sense? I wasn't trying to draw a correlation between those two. It's a good question to ask because the structure of how I wrote those is very similar.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one.
Cool. Not much to discuss, but it's nice to read. You know.
I think it's cool to have. Like, I think that's the first time that Brennan like straight up said Relane is into men.
That's true. Having more words of Brandon about that is very good to have.
He's solely interested in other men.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also one where he doesn't introduce rhythm of war like language into the like you can give this to like somebody who's read Words of Radiance and it wouldn't necessarily spoil it.
Though the Relane quote is from Rhythm of War, so
yeah.
But like it's not a huge deal.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are not a huge deal. So listeners, if you know anything about me, you know that I like to take my time and craft and prepare a list of questions for Brandon every time we meet, and each one of these questions is handcrafted, and I weigh the possibility for Raffo against the possibility for information gain and stuff like that.
How else would you craft WoBs?
With my feet. And so
all right then, okay. Wasn't expecting that answer, but all right.
I try to be very intentional with my questions.
So how'd that go?
So I left a couple of questions on Brandon's Twitter, and I left a couple of questions on his Facebook.
Oh no, I didn't go into WoB mode, but we fixed it. Good, perfect timing.
In the hopes that he will answer one of those, and instead, Adam picks up the following comment from YouTube chat.
Oh, the most carefully crafted.
Are the Rhythm of War Xeon communication devices called Sel-phones? Asks Argent. And out of all of these, it gets picked up, and there is a widespread groaning at the pun.
Our thumbnail should just have like a stock picture of a cell phone, but at the top it's just like an Aeon. Maybe like Ian's Aeon right there. Just like plop that there, and there we go. It's cell phone. We're done.
And so I am delighted that I managed to give Brandon and his team some measure of entertainment, but also
that's really why you're here, for the entertainment. And some of the good thoughts that you have.
But
mostly the entertainment.
Next time, please.
Well, that's what you get for talking in YouTube chat. At least you got something, okay? At least you got
got a gold star from Brandon.
Yeah, you got a gold star.
I did, yeah. I'm still waiting for it. It hasn't arrived in the mail, but I'm waiting for it.
That's
still waiting for my stabby
sticker. It's a gold one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on. Dave Smith asks, can a Mistborn burn any god metal, such as Tanavastium? And Brandon answered, yes, they could. Helpfully, the transcriber already added a footnote that Brandon has previously indicated that they would need like a sufficient tie or connection to that type of investiture, to that shard. So I don't think this contradicts this. Brandon just probably didn't clarify it here. Because they can burn it, it just requires some...
You need some prerequisites. Yeah, that's fine.
You need to be connected to that shard in some way.
Which makes a lot of sense, right? Because you also need to be connected to a shard to ascend to that shard. So
it's just interesting that Lerasium is just like, no, anyone can have it. Don't care. It's like, okay, interesting, I guess. But
yeah, I guess. No, you're right, right? Because Hoid presumably is not particularly connected to preservation.
Well, but he could be like connected with like Adonalcium stuff, and so like maybe like an equal connection to all of them in a way, more so than a Scadrian is just for preservation. That I don't know how much I like that, but there's room to argue with Hoid that he would have a sufficient connection to preservation, right? Whereas like a random Nalthian would not have that same sort of thing, right? Right?
I don't like any of this.
Technically, all 16 shards are invested on Roshar, okay?
Please stop saying words.
that was one Brandon got me. Yeah?
A thing where Brandon said that, like, Lerasium forges a connection to preservation.
Yes.
So, because... you will have a connection to preservation.
No.
Oh, I like this.
The interesting parallel here is with the unsealed metal mines, the medallion, where anybody can use them theoretically. We just don't know if that's any Scadrian can use them or if non-Scadrians can use them.
Right. Yeah.
But there is an interesting parallel here.
Well, I mean, that's certainly neat, you know? I mean, Lerasium's just weird. Lerasium and Atium are just weird.
Yeah.
I imagine everything
relatively normal.
I still find it weird that Mistborn burn Atium. But Atium by itself has no properties whatsoever.
Yeah.
Whereas Lerasium has special property that forges connection. And that's the thing that confuses me.
This is a good opportunity to bring up some of the changes that Brandon is playing with as he's writing the Mistborn movie screenplay thing, which there's no confirmed movie. He's just playing with stuff.
He's practicing screenwriting.
Yeah. And one of the changes that he is interested in doing, and he said that if he were writing the Cosmere now, or if he were writing Era 1 now, this is something he would do, is figure out a way to make Atium burnable by anyone, because that's just more in line with the laws of the Cosmere as he has established them.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been weird that Atium is like, it's pure ruin. Also, you can still push and pull on it, even though it's like, there's a lot of weird stuff, and it's just like, let's just sweep that under the rug. Under that rug. No more Atium. Don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yep.
Sure.
Maybe not in the Lost Metal.
You don't know that.
Yeah. Snow Day Please also asks, does the fact that singers have red bones mean that they have red teeth? Brandon, I have not indicated that to the artists, so I'm going to say no. It would cause a revolution in fan art, though Isaac can overrule me on that as he's directing art and things. It would probably make sense for them to have red teeth, but we haven't done much color art, and I don't know if they've ever been smiling. They probably would, but I have not described them that way. I don't think I've described it any other way either, so we could move forward with that direction. They probably should have red teeth. It looks pretty cool. Red teeth looks kind of nifty. I do like that. Sinister to our preconceived notion of what sinister is how I'm kind of designing the singers. It's true. This reminds me of your question in the Dusty Wheel one, where maybe we could just say that now, because you were commenting about singers' patterns relating to their hair color.
Yeah. So the question is something that I've had on my list for over a year now.
This is a good question, unlike cell phones.
Unlike cell phones. This is an actual question, not a, hey, let's make Brandon laugh. I did notice that, actually very recently, I noticed that Relane's beard is described as red and black in Words of Radiance. In fact, credit goes to favorite fan artist of ours, RS Pixart.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
After noticing that, I went and looked at his skin marbling, which was also red and black. And so it made me wonder, oh, is that just a thing that like singer hair, facial hair at least, follows their skin patterns? And so that's what I asked, essentially, with the follow-up of, does Venli's white and red skin, which we know that it's white and red, even though she says there's a black dot and that makes her tricolor and therefore special. She's lying.
What?
It's a thing in her flashbacks.
I totally forgot this. Wow.
That is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So
I believe you. I believe you.
We know that her skin is red and white, but also in singer culture, having all three colors is kind of makes you a big deal. And so she's like, oh, I totally see this spot of black on my back behind the neck, even though nobody else sees it.
Oof.
Young Venli is a thing.
Yes. It's a thing to behold, all right.
Anyway, so I asked whether her hair would also be white and red, not realizing that we actually know that her hair is orange. Like, at the time, I had just completely forgotten about that fact.
Huh.
But Brandon does say that, yeah, that's a thing. Skin and hair matching. That actually happens very commonly in the animal kingdom with the patterns on the skin. So yes, the answer is yes, but that's not come up in the text in the books, and he doesn't know if it will. So it does make me wonder if... So I think one way to justify the orange is to play with, one, the number of genes that control hair color, and the dominance versus recessiveness of these genes. So you can have somebody with white and red skin, a singer, and then their hair is orange because there is a gene that says, oh, your hair is going to be a single color and it's going to be a mixture of all of your skin colors. And you can have a different singer who has a white and red skin, and that same gene has a different expression that says, oh, instead of mixing the two colors, you're going to have distinct white strands and red strands, for example.
I buy that. I, at the very least, I would just go with, it's related to their skin patterns, and like there would be some variance of things. And
this does remind me of the fact of how Alethi Black and Uriali Gold breed true, even though they don't actually. But whereas like you can have multiple.
That stuff's weird.
Yeah,
it's like Brandon uses the term breed true, but that's not what that actually means.
Like the Uriali hair's actually golden, not blonde.
Yeah,
it's golden.
So is their skin, by the way.
Yep.
Their skin is metallic gold.
Wow, that's so weird and cool. They're so weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this next one is from Voted, who asks,
It was awesome.
Yep. Was Hoid burning bendalloy in the Braze vision in Rhythm of War, where he tells the story of the dog and the dragon.
Helps Calvin.
Mm-hmm. Which Brandon Raffos.
I think that's a very interesting idea.
Yeah, because it does describe like a bubble of calm.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And there is also a line that Hoid says about how they don't have much time. Although I think that is in the context, they don't have much time left in the vision, that is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is in the context of, I think Odium might notice what we were doing
that's
here.
kind of what I thought as well.
Alternatively, like he could be burning cadmium, to kind of like speed Kaladin through.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Could be, yeah.
I don't think
my personal read has always been that it's just like it does look like a speed bubble, but it's more like just a thing that Hoid does in the vision. Like he takes control of the vision in that small space.
Yeah.
So no clue how he does it, but
I think bendalloy could be involved.
It could be, but it makes me think of the vision where Dalinar meets or pulls Venli in. And so the vision as presented by the Stormfather is, the Nodon vision, right? Except there's also Venli and Dalinar in there. And then Odium is kind of on the inside battering at essentially the boundaries of the vision, right? And breaking in and trying to essentially introduce his own vision or his own idea of how because visions are spiritual constructs with a cognitive framework in mind.
Yep.
And so there is room there for like conflicting ideas of what the vision should look like to clash. And so I think that's what's going on there. I think Hoid is doing less of a speed bubble and more of a like reality bubble.
Yeah, because if you're in a vision, how much magic could you exert? Like, could you burn Allomancy in them?
Dalinar uses Surge Binding and Stormlight Healing in one of the storm. Like, once he becomes aware that these are visions sent by the Stormfather, and once he swears the Stormfather.
Because was that in Midnight Essence when bringing someone in that he used that?
I'm thinking of the one where there is the stone ward that builds a ramp for a bunch of soldiers. And that's a vision where Dalinar has his arm cut off. And the Stormfather's like, why don't you just heal with Stormlight? And Dalinar's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then he eventually does that.
Although I think that might still be a thing where like that is just something that because Dalinar has a certain amount of control over the vision, he can just like say, okay, I believe that I should be able to burn Storm or use Stormlight to heal myself here, so I can.
Yeah, it's like Hoid intruding in a vision. I feel like, I think open question how much magic he could exert, but I mean, clearly he's doing something at the very least.
I don't see any reason why like you couldn't use magic in a vision, like if you can do that magic, because technically you're not actually doing that magic. You're just simulating doing that magic because that's something you can do.
Oh boy, that's a lot of perception mumbo jumbo there in there. All right.
Like if Dalinar regrows his arm with Stormlight, he's not actually using any Stormlight in the real world to do that. It's it's part of the simulation.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense to me. I think the only way you wouldn't be able to use magic that you would normally be able to is if whoever is creating the vision creates it in such a way that you no longer have access to your, like, it has to be an intentional, okay, I'm bringing this person into the vision and the version I'm bringing of themselves is one that doesn't have access to their magic. And then there's room for like the two ideas to clash with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to this 15-minute WoB.
It was very good. It was very good. Brandon talked about this before, but
listeners, set your timers. Set your timers to 15 minutes from now.
We're not going to read the whole thing.
We're not going to read the whole thing. No. There is a lot of interesting stuff in it, so we're going to hyper paraphrase. But if you're interested about what's going on here, I strongly recommend going to Arcanum and either listening to it or reading through it. But the question that prompts all of this madness is coming from Last Adventurous Aerith, who asks, how did you decide to turn Taravangian into Odium?
And Brandon answered this in our interview, and he says a lot of similar things. But
But the new bit that has nothing to do with Taravangian or
Odium, yeah, nothing.
Is a thing where he talks about so he talks about like essentially how not everything in his outlines for the Cosmere is fixed in stone, and some things can go either way. And one of those things was Kelsier coming back. So obviously we know that in our canonical timeline, Kelsier did come back as a cognitive shadow, and that's who Thaidakar is. But a different way this could have gone. Well, let's just read what Brandon says.
Let's read it.
The other one, the other Divergent Future thing, was bringing Kelsier back. Kelsier, as I seeded all the stuff in the original books to bring Kelsier back, but then I backed off of it, and for a while I'm like, I don't think I'm going to bring Kelsier back. During the whole thing, this is a fun spoiler thing that I don't think I've talked about before, and he hasn't.
No.
During the time of the outlining, some of you may, again, have much prefer this. TenSoon was actually going to be Thaidakar wearing Kelsier's bones. There was a time where I was going to play with a Kandra believing they were Kelsier, in this case, TenSoon. I was going to go this direction where it's like, I'm the survivor. I'm picking up the survivor's heritage, and I'm doing all this sorts of stuff. I did warn you about the spoilers, says Brandon. And go that. And there was a time where I decided to no, I'm going to leave Kelsier dead. I'm going to go into that direction. So why did I back off of this one? A couple of reasons. Number one, I feel like I really did a solid job with Lessie in the second of Wax and Wayne books, Shadows of Self, which was a similar conflict. I felt like I got that out of my system. I did it well. I think the story has some really heart-wrenching things. But as I wrote the story, I felt like that's a one-book story. And there's a lot more.
Yeah.
That Brandon goes on to talk about.
He says that he just decided that it would be more interesting to do a full arc for Kelsier, and that his original plan was better. But there's costs. Has really cool how he just thought about the options. It's like, how could this go? I do think it is more interesting that it is actually Kelsier.
Yeah. Because then he can do other things with TenSoon as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That
and with Kelsier.
More accurate to TenSoon's character.
Yeah.
And what this lends a bit of credence to is that there's a theory that because we see Kelsier apparently having a body in that copper mine that Wex taps at the end of Bands of Mourning, and there's a theory that it is a Kandra's or at least Mistwraith body that has consumed Kelsier's bones or something that he just inhabits. So I feel like this lends some way to that, because if Brandon has thought along those lines, at least for Kelsier, maybe he did something
one of
there.
The paths.
Yeah,
It could be a nod to that.
He always said in the Era 1 annotations, he was like, well, those Kelsier's bones, they might be important. And so you can see even that he was thinking about that of wow, I never even considered that could be a possibility. I guess you'd still have the same secret history stuff, because Kelsier would still need to hold the power of preservation for a bit. He would choose to go to the beyond, right?
Yeah.
At the end, basically.
And it's so a lot of things here are interesting. Two of the ones I want to bring up are, it sounds like pretty much up until Shadows of Self. Thaidakar being Kelsier, being actually Kelsier, was something undecided.
Yeah, it was either Kelsier or TenSoon pretending to be Kelsier.
Yeah. So
which is interesting because right after that he wrote Secret History, and that might be why he wrote Secret History then.
Yeah. Once he wrote the Shadows and Bands together, he's he had to make the choice, and at that time he clearly chose Kelsier, and it's all right, that's what it is.
When we go back to the prologue of the Way of Kings, and Gavilar's like, tell Thaidakar it's too late, at that point, when Brandon was writing this, he probably wasn't thinking Kelsier.
Yeah.
He was probably thinking some nebulous leader of the Ghost Bloods that was not fleshed out at that stage.
I do still think he thought it was either one of these two.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He thought it like either it's Kelsier or it's TenSoon wearing Kelsier's bow.
Believing
I think
that
that he knew.
Perhaps. But we also know that one of the reasons Kelsier ended up being Thydakar, and we ended up revealing that in Rhythm of War, or discovering that in Rhythm of War, was because Brandon was concerned that we were spending too much time away from Scadrial, and he wanted to like seed more Scadrian themes in other books that were coming out, notably Stormlight. When The Way of Kings was coming out, that was not a thing he was worried about, because it's before.
No, I think that's... No, I think he had like, oh, like I'm moving away from Mistborn for a while. I don't want people to forget it. So I'm going to start seeding in Mistborn things. So he included Thydakar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that like some relation to Kelsier always has been there, because otherwise I feel like it changes way too much for Thydakar to be someone else, like anybody else.
Maybe. But the other thing that's interesting to me is the fact that Lessie kind of scratched similar itch to the one that Brandon had.
That's weird.
So the thing with like when Brandon talks about TenSoon kind of not becoming Kelsier, but like taking up on that mantle, taking up on that mission. To me, that sounds like the story he wanted to tell was a Kandra, TenSoon or not, who really takes Kelsier's mission to heart. And so we don't really, like, it doesn't sound to me like there is an identity crisis that Brandon wanted to tell, but there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of, this is a Kandra who's really gotten into this personality. And so it is interesting to me that Lessie covers that, because in some way she does, right? She was the Lord Ruler's Kandra, and we are being told that she barely had a personality of her own when she wasn't playing a role, right?
Yeah, and like that doesn't work as well with TenSoon, because TenSoon very much has a personality, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is better. And I think, like, if you think Kelsier is going to be involved Era 3 and Era 4 as well, like, I feel like it's just stronger to have Kelsier rather than a Kandra pretending to be Kelsier. Yeah. Even though a Kandra pretending to be Kelsier would completely make sense in World, right? Like, it totally makes sense.
I mean, it happened in World.
It did. It's very sensible. And at the end of this, he was talking about Taravangian and Odium. Is like, do I make Taravangian be Odium? Because there's trade-offs. And he vacillated on that, and then he chose to make that decision. And Adam asks, are you ever going to reveal what the alternate was going to be? Kind of like what you just did. And Brandon said, maybe eventually I will, but for now I will not. And he said it's easier because is all in the past. And it's kind of funny. He actually refers to Way of Kings Prime, where Talon's original story was, am I an angel or am I not? And Brandon just said that just doesn't work in the modern Way of Kings. It's like, yeah, no, the time afterwards of Radiance when you're like the man who thinks he's Talon, because he is still like
the man who calls himself
the man who calls himself Talon. If you're much newer to the fandom, that was definitely a thing for a while that Brandon would say, probably because he's like, I still have that idea for the story and I think that's cool, but it just didn't work in practice, right?
It was an interesting time in the fandom, listeners and viewers, when there was a period of maybe a couple of years when we would just ask. So also, post Words of Radiance was kind of the golden era of WoBs. Like, we got so many from that period of time.
Those firefight signings.
And there was what felt like a disproportionately high number of times when we would ask Brandon about Tone, right? Because we'd seen him at the end of The Way of Kings, and we'd seen the interlude in Words of Radiance, and he would answer just normally, and then at the end of the question, he would be like, the man who calls himself Tom.
Very consistently.
And everyone's just like, what?
And we're all like, no, he's tall. It's like, that's what it is. And he's like, yeah, this is tall. So it's just interesting. Do you have any ideas what an alternate would be? Like, would we think that there would be a different person ascending to Odium? And
I think there's a possibility of like race, because he's having this like dissonance with Odium, like gets destroyed, and like Odium the Shard becomes sentient. Maybe.
I don't know if that's possible.
It's like, that's the danger of like Investiture left on its own can become sentient.
Yes, but there's also things like where it was very good that Kelsier and Sazed picked up the power when they did, because in like an implication that would maybe not be great. Like maybe he's meaning that, but I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Brennan has alluded to shards becoming sentient on their own.
Yeah,
given
but
enough time.
that wouldn't happen like between two books.
True.
Yeah. I feel like it probably would have been something that would have happened in book 5. Like if anything happened with audio or race.
Yeah, like the change could have happened in book 5. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think before Rhythm of War, Dalinar, or it's even still popular theory is that Dalinar might pick it up.
Odium, yeah.
So maybe Brennan has been maybe like another. I don't think he would have gotten another Harmony sort of situation where, because Dalinar symbolizes honor so much or whatever, he reforms honor and adds Odium on top or something like that. But
I don't have an answer, but I want to tackle this from a more meta perspective.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of things that we know that I think are very important, and they are that, one, book 3 could have been Zeth's, and book 5 could have been Dalinar's.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to me, what that implies, also we are firmly in speculation land right now.
Totally.
What that implies to me is that I Am Unity wouldn't have happened in book 3.
Yeah, it would have happened in book 5, yeah.
Maybe it would have happened in book 5. Maybe it would not have happened at all.
Yeah, and maybe like... Yeah, so Race wouldn't be defeated. Maybe he wouldn't even have made himself on screen in Oathbringer. Like maybe Brandon would have done a slower burn on that. Maybe.
And that's the second thing I'm getting at. So one of the reasons... So the maybe not the main reason, but one of the reasons we see Ray's, not Odium, but Ray's defeated in book 4 is because he has failed in book 3, and he has failed again in book 4 in the primary objective that he was doing. And so in the reader's minds, he's no longer a competent villain.
Right.
Yeah. And so if we combine these two, right, so we make Zeth's book to be book 3, which means Ray's doesn't fail in book 3 because there's no, like, he doesn't try to take over Dalinar.
Right.
And then in book 4, maybe he fails, maybe he doesn't.
It's not like a colossal catastrophe like losing Dalinar.
It is. Yeah, it is still only one strike. And so we can still have like a scary, powerful Rays in book 5.
Right.
Who confronts and maybe tries to turn Dalinar in book 5.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I buy all this. Yeah.
We can either have I Am Unity in that book, at which point end the first arc of Stormlight with kind of a defeat over Rays, where he's been grooming Dalinar all this time, and in the climax of the book, Dalinar says, "No, you cannot have my pain." And then in the back 5, we deal with actually defeating Rays or whatever, but this defeat in book 5 has bought us the time between book 5 and 6.
Okay, yeah, I buy that.
Or having been successful in book 3 or missing from book 3, defeated in book 4, Rays wins
and takes Dalinar. Okay,
in book 5, and either takes Dalinar or in that case, I don't think Dalinar would have ascended. I think that would just come out of nowhere a little bit.
But it's almost like, yeah, so maybe he's not revealing this because it's like, oh, book 5 is a big deal, but like maybe after book 5 comes out, he can talk more specifically about like, this was my original plan for book 5. This is this other one. And like, yeah, like it's an interesting idea because now Brandon's like, well, Dalinar could be effused, and we still get that a little bit now.
And that could have been the original plan.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, it's an interesting thing because Brandon chose to do it this way because of all of the choices he made up until this point.
Right.
So
Like,
it's not like, oh, it's like he reached this point and he had a binary option. It's like way back on the timeline, he had a binary option. But like, because of all the tiny, smaller choices he made along the way, it's like, this is the one that made sense. It's like how many choices do we have to undo before like the other option becomes more plausible?
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like, it's
right.
Complicated to think
and
about.
like really, I think it's the decision to have Dalinar book 3 rather than Zeth. And like once you do that and you decide, no, this is Dalinar's arc and I'm going to do it now, then it's like, well, as a consequence, Race isn't going to feel as threatening, and he's not in book 4. And so it's like, yeah, that's very interesting. That's just very interesting. And I do think that alternative path is just, hey, we do Dalinar falls in book 5 instead. Like, that could be very interesting.
I would love to have Brandon just explain in depth, okay, this is another way Stormlight 1 through 5 could have gone.
Yeah, because he always says how terrible his outlines become once he gets to the book that he's working on, because he's made all these smaller choices on how that changes things. Well, all right. Well, so like the Avatar one, I think in our events chat on Discord, I'm like, oh, that's a 20-minute Shardcast question. It's like, oh my God, TenSoon being Kelsier. All right, well, there's another 20 minutes on Shardcast. Did it. I don't know if it's actually been 20 minutes, but it's been a while.
Feels like it.
So moving on from this behemoth to something short and sweet, Michael Christopher Cheyenne asked, did Sazed get memories as fast as Taravangian when he ascended? To which Bren answered, yes, he did, but getting memories and getting these things and knowing what to do with them and stuff are different things. But yeah, I would say the experience was somewhat similar, which makes sense that different ascensions would be more or less comparable.
It's weird that he draws like such a parallel because Sazed also had the metal mines that he tapped in the moment.
That
which
yeah, but
Taravangian did not.
Yeah, but he's like, so, well, yes, Taravangian's getting help from cultivation specifically, which is probably very useful. But also, let's say Sazed did not have his metal mines, and he probably wouldn't be able to, like, he would remember what happened with the powers and like what oaths like they made and stuff in the agreements, but not necessarily how to fix it all. That's how I would interpret that.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, like he would know how to use the powers and stuff like that, but not what to actually do with them.
Yeah,
more or less. Like,
to restore Skadro.
Yeah.
So it's like, if anything, like I think Sazed picked things up more quickly than Taravangian.
I think Sazed had like historical context around the power as well, right? So I think without the metal mines, he could have ran into the same problem that Roshar did, right? So he could have been like, oh, the planet's too close to the sun. Whoops.
Yeah, for sure.
He was able to apply them much faster, like the powers and like his knowledge. And Taravangian would need probably cultivation to show him some stuff. Yeah, he already made a mistake with Hoid, but clearly he knows some tricks. Whereas Sazed's interesting in that he doesn't really know a lot about Autonomy. Like, he really had to like dig for that. So that's kind of interesting that like the memories don't really tell too much. I don't know. It's interesting. It's hard to say.
Wavy.
It's very hand wavy because it's like Brandon, whatever Brandon decides, he can rationalize.
I could sort of see that as being like something the vessels knew before picking up the shards, but you only get access to what the shard
power actually did.
Yeah, the power experience, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd buy that. Plus, like, it's probably interesting having a single shard rather than two because, like, Sazed has a different experience with things. Because then he gets two sets of knowledge and how they complemented each other. And so he's probably more focused on that than like, oh yeah, the Cosmere is ruled by broken gods. Hey, what's up? But also, wait, well, hold on. No, that makes sense because if we're saying, oh, Taravangian gets memories of what the power did, Odium wrecked a lot of broken gods. So like that makes a lot of sense. Whereas Ruin and Preservation, not necessarily like doing shardic conflict except within themselves. Right. So that makes perfect sense to me that Taravangian would probably quickly grasp this idea that the Cosmere is ruled by broken gods. Which is like, that was before cultivation appeared. Like that was very quick for Taravangian to realize. Whereas I don't think Sazed, like the epigraphs are like, wow, I had to delve a lot to get Ada Halcyon. Like,
well, and there's also, with a lot of these things, they are very dependent on how the new vessel is approaching this search for information.
Yeah.
Like, the shard is infinite, but the vessel's mind is not. And so where you dig and what to dig for are important. So it's very much like Sazed to kind of be introspective and look at the power that he has just acquired and stuff like that. Whereas it is very much like Taravangian to go, let's take a look at the universe.
I want to fix everything. Yeah. Okay. I'm totally satisfied with this now. Yeah. Good talk.
And like, what does the Cosmere is ruled by broken gods mean? That's a poetic turn of phrase that can mean a wide variety of things.
That's true. I feel like it's just Taravangian. My personal thought is I feel that's just Taravangian understanding the shards more deeply, like what they are and how that conflict was working, and he's just thinking, oh, it's ruled by gods, but they're kind of crappy gods. They're not that great. They're broken gods. I can do better. So that's my interpretation of that. It certainly is a very poetic way to do it. It's very evocative, which Brandon's been getting very good with those evocative turns of phrase. Cool, great, all right. Archmage asks, if Kaladin wasn't in the arena in Words of Radiance, would Zahel have intervened to help Adolin? Brandon says, I will raffo that, but a different kind of raffo, in that I don't think Zahel himself knows what he would do in that situation. The better part of him would want to have, but he is not living his best life right now, shall we say. He is not living up to his potential, and he knows it. And so, would he have? He should have, but would he have? Good question. Even if he doesn't, I don't think he could answer. That's very interesting. Less for the actual content and more just like this just really solidifies like, oh yeah, like there's a character arc for Vasher here. And it's like, I don't know where it's going and when that's gonna matter, but I feel like that will matter eventually, right?
Yeah.
Like I think back half at this stage.
And it's evocative of the way Brandon writes. Like he outlines plots, he doesn't outline characters.
True.
So
true.
Like, Brandon can't answer this because he didn't write this scene. He doesn't know what choice Vasher would have made.
Yeah. Yep. Because he's said no to a lot of things he probably should have done.
Yeah. It doesn't help much that we get to see Vasher exactly once in Rhythm of War and then like just
I'm out of here.
So, yeah.
Oh man, I want a novella about that.
But what a scene that was, right?
How's the chapter right there?
But I do find this very like it hits a little too close to home This Vasher going, hey, I know I can be better than this, but also I don't think if I can be better than this right now.
Guys, I have an amazing idea. No, not a joke, not a joke. I was just thinking in my brain.
As opposed to
I don't know, man. That's like, we should all live up to our potential, like else callers, and not be like Vasher. But then I was like, what if Vasher becomes an else caller and lives up to his potential and gets an ink spread? I'm like, that actually sounds really cool.
He is a scholar.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And I feel like especially for Vasher, who is also returned, living up to their potential is also something like they apparently come back for a purpose, and he still hasn't fulfilled his, presumably. So that living up to his potential would fulfill that. So yeah.
Oh, damn. I really like this idea. I think this is actually really solid.
So we know that Vasher disappeared from Rhythm of War. In part because of all the stuff that went down in Eurythero.
Yeah.
But he's now MIA.
Yep.
And we also know that the Inkspren, by way of Blended, now need to reevaluate their opinion of humans and the Recreants. And so there's an opportunity there to tie these two things together by sending Vasher to the Inkspren for a chat.
I mean, he'd know where they are.
Yeah.
And all we got to do is have Horneater for Rock to fix whatever's going on at the peaks. And then Vasher can go there through the perpendicularity and then talk with Inkspren. And then in the back 5, maybe he could get a Spren on screen. Maybe.
Wait.
Solved it.
Did Vasher leave anytime close to when Rock left? Maybe he accompanied them.
No, it was in part 1, right?
Yeah.
And we saw that scene and then there's just nothing of Vasher. I don't know how Vasher, would Vasher just Wow, we're deep in the rabbit hole here. But
yes, you are. So next question.
One more thing. I will say, I don't think we're going to get a lot of Vasher in book 5. Maybe just a hint. Or a hint in Horneater or something. None of this arc and stuff is going to be book 5. That much I'm confident about. But yes, next question.
Tony Patrick asks, where did you get the idea to have multiple moons on Roshar? Brandon, I have no idea. It's gone back so far. I mean, yeah, no idea. I like doing weird things with cosmology and with planets and things like that. For the 2010 version, looking at the moons, I wanted to subtly indicate the presence of 3 gods and kind of subtly give some color scheme indications of them and things like that. But they aren't one-to-one. Just that idea, because everything was based around 10. I wanted some 3s hanging around in the world building as well.
Yeah, because they are violet, blue, and green, right?
Yep.
Yes. Interesting that he says it's not a one-to-one. Where, Brandon, that seems like a one-to-one.
With the lights,
what are you not
colors
saying here?
Well, maybe just that, it's not like Odium invested on Salus or something.
Well, I don't think that's what he's saying.
Sure.
He's implying that, the colors aren't one-to-one, which is not what we see in the books. So what does he know that we don't?
The purple band's so large on that void light that, the violet color is probably in that band.
I would not read too much into that one-to-one comment.
Yeah, it's just, it's weird.
He's just hedging, I guess.
Yeah.
Why are there 10 gas giants? Because Aiden Alcium wanted.
Probably, actually.
Aiden Alcium saw the future and saw that there would be 3 gods, and so therefore put 3 moons there. It's okay, sure.
At some
Alright.
point, it's just writerly reasons.
Yeah, you're right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the next question asks whether Nightblood or Chiri-Chiri would consume more investiture. To which Brandon says, Nightblood, Chiri-Chiri would get full a lot faster.
Which makes sense. Who would fill up faster, the organic being or the robotic eating machine?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty much it.
Yeah, there you go. We did. Yeah, I mean, good to know. Good to know.
Brett asks, will every death rattle have a canonized point of reference at some point in a coming novel? To which Bren answered, I don't intend them all to. I intend most of them to, but I don't intend them all to. Some of them happened, but were not relevant to the story on screen, is what I've decided.
Mhm.
That makes sense. There's some just evocative ones that aren't like actual events.
Yeah. Just like 10 people, blades of light, standing against the wall.
Walls of, yeah. That was exactly the one I was thinking of too. Yeah.
It's like black, red, and white, which is just like, that's a fiction of heralds, like metaphorical.
Yep.
You don't know. That could happen. But
no, I reject your words.
But like I do think like some of the ones that like are not just the evocative ones, like
won't happen
they could
on screen.
just describe events that don't happen on screen.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think it's just like, oh, there's the evocative ones and then there's like the plot ones.
True.
Like,
Yeah, that's certainly
it's
true.
like murkier than that.
Yeah.
I know that Ben really likes this one for his child champion theory, but the one with the suckling child and hold the knife, that might be one that like just happens in the world somewhere that we don't see because like it's an apocalypse happening.
No, I think that one is a plot one.
But I mean,
but it doesn't need to be.
Like,
it doesn't need to be. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like I think there are going to be plot ones that just don't happen on screen, but will be alluded to.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Like that's more what I think Brandon is trying to answer here.
Yep.
Like they will
agree.
all happen. They just won't necessarily happen on screen.
Okay.
All right. Oh boy, this next one. Black Flame Omega asks, does light, capital L, in a vacuum become unkeyed until exposed to a vibration upon leaving? And what happens if that vibration isn't actually a pure tone? So this is obviously referring to the making the anti-void light and you need it in the vacuum and that stuff. And Brandon says it can be overridden and things like that. You can unkey that vibration and then kind of separate it. Whether it's even fully unkeyed, to be perfectly honest, I can't even say. Like you're dampening it and then overriding it with something else. This is kind of outside the world. They wouldn't be able to measure it, but I don't think it's completely unkeyed, like Navani thinks it is, before she rekeys it. The mental component on her part is pretty important to what's happening. So he has said that the intent matters a lot for what happened there. So that's at least that last sentence. The vacuum's very weird, though. The vacuum's very weird. It's always been weird.
It's...
I have a thought.
Okay.
I think completely unkeying investiture, completely unkeying light would imply turning it into quote-unquote pure investiture. And so I think what Brandon is saying and what we see on screen to an extent is that there's no way for anyone to turn... there's no practical way. There may be a theoretical way. There's no practical way for anyone in world to turn void light or Odium's investiture into anything that is not related to Odium's investiture. So you can turn void light into anti-void light, but you can't turn void light into Stormlight, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I totally believe that. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think that's what this is saying.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Yeah. The theoretical way to make pure investiture reforge Adenalcium. Step 1. Step 2, ... Step 3, profit.
Yeah.
The good old Bill Nye, if you want to make a pie, first you have to invent the universe.
It's true. Interesting, though.
I think that was Carl Sagan.
Next question. Team Tima asks, Vin sucked in the mist with a deep breath. Also, the mist was leaking from her arms. Is that similar to Stormlight? Brandon, yes, it is. 100%. In fact, you should notice that when shard blades form, they take shape from a certain substance.
And yeah, and one other thing, recently rereading Bands of Mourning, when Marasi takes the bands, there's like mist coming off of her arms, which is super reminiscent of a radiant Stormlight, and that smoke coming off.
There's also, I think it's a scene in Well of Ascension where Vin is describing the mists appearing, and it's described almost exactly the same way as Adolin describes summoning Maya. It's like vines made of mist, and it's just almost word for word the same.
That makes sense to me. Brandon has related Stormlight and Mist sort of gaseous investiture. It's not those aren't exactly the same, but the stuff that Stormlight came from is, I would say, is quite like the mists.
Yeah,
right.
It's the parallel is mists to the high storm.
Yeah. Kinda.
Yeah, loosely.
Roshar's complicated. We don't have the full story. Honestly, we don't even have the full story on the mists.
And in fact, speaking of the next question, could you have trapped the mists from Scadrial in a gemstone? Asks Bubbles SOAR. Oh, it's probably Bubblesaur. Theoretically possible, says Brandon.
Nice. I had a theory, I think it was 2014, 2015, Mist Fabrials. That's how the Southern Scadrian things work. That is not how that works. I don't know how anyone would have guessed the crazy medallion things that they got, but neat. Cool. What are the excisers? But yeah, no, I totally believe that there is a way to do that and probably use it in some sort of... I think you could make Mist Fabrials.
Yeah.
I wonder how far this extends, right? So I have a feeling that you are also going to be able to capture breath in gems.
I don't think you like breath and like the mist as is. I don't think could be captured, but a version of them could be. So refine the mist into mist light, and that could be like refine it down to like the light, capital L light, which is actually gas, because that's how the Cosmere works. That can be captured, and it's like maybe like you can refine breath in some way to make, I don't know, gift light.
There would be a difference between like storing the breath in a gemstone, like you say, my breath, exactly, and so you would have to first bring the breath into a different form for it to actually be able to enter those.
I don't think you put a gemstone in the mist and it absorbs it. I do not think that is how that works.
Yeah.
So, Marvin, you think you're saying that breath is more akin to the mists in that you wouldn't be storing the breath in the same way you wouldn't be storing the mists, but you would be storing a distilled version of both of these.
Yeah.
And distilled is actually apparently a word that Brandon uses several times when it comes to turning investiture into its gaseous, liquid, or solid form.
Yeah, and I think the special thing with Stormlight is just, if you just randomly put a gemstone out, it will be infused, and it will be invested with that investiture. And, like, I don't think that naturally happens for other things, right?
Or it's like you could ask, hey, Sazed, do you want to fill this with
the Song of Prayer right there. It's like, all right, let's go. Fill this gemstone, please. Kelsier is
know
like,
how
hey,
you get
please.
Lifelight.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, right. Yeah, we have no idea. So much cultivation stuff we don't.
Presumably, the Night Watcher bondsmith could do it, but there has to be another way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's probably the easiest way.
I do want to tackle that for a moment, but I wanted to ask, so Eric, when you were talking about just leaving a gem outside it gets full of Stormlight.
Yeah.
One, it is notable that just leaving a gem out in the Everstorm doesn't fill it with
does
void
not
light.
infuse it. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. And so the Everstorm doesn't function the same way as the High Storm is my takeaway from that.
I would agree, yeah.
And the other thing is, I wonder if just leaving a gem out in the mists wouldn't... Maybe the gem would still get invested with quote-unquote mist light, but it wouldn't draw the mists themselves. So like it would essentially extract the mist light out of them. In the same way that a gemstone, it doesn't extract, but like the Stormlight from the High Storm, quote unquote.
I think the thing about the High Storms is that like it's not that there's Stormlight in there and it diffuses into the gemstones. It's more that like something about the High Storms fills the gemstones. Like it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not like even if you like were to have a free cloud of storm, if you were to have a free cloud of Stormlight and put a gemstone in it, it would not fill up. You need it's some process that is required to fill it, I think, because every time we see a transfer of Stormlight, it's like it's a direct transfer. It's not like you have free Stormlight and then have it sucked up, or like you could do that, but you require
because free Stormlight just dissipates and it goes
exactly
back into the spiritual realm,
so,
right?
Yeah. It's right. It's the Stormfather who's responsible for all of this, right? Because you essentially have this. God, they had a name for it in the books.
The centerbeat.
The centerbeat.
Yeah.
You have this.
Such a good term.
That's a good name.
I love it.
Maybe it's a perpendicularity. Maybe it's something akin to a perpendicularity. But like that's when gemstones get infused. It's not the storm. It's the father. Whatever.
Yeah. But like, and it's like.
But yeah, that's a good point.
The mists were designed by preservation
to do specific things.
He didn't design it to be like. He didn't set it up for like there to be a mechanism to capture it.
Right. And so Honor maybe just like designed this High Storm to specifically do that.
Yeah.
I think like that might have, I think Adenalsium might have done
okay,
that.
yeah, sure. Like because how the High Storm relates with Adenalsium versus Honor is kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it's been raffled whether the Stormlight part of the High Storms existed before the Shattering.
Yeah. I'm shocked that it's Raffo. Oh, wait. Yeah. It's like, prehistory of Roshar. Yeah, how about we just Raffo all that?
Because I think at that point, it's like the Shardic makeup of Stormlight was still unknown. So that might be part of it, but we don't know.
Yeah. Well, we talked a lot about that question. Wow. Yep. I mean, I'm not surprised, but...
So next question is from Hessi's Award.
Nice. Good reference. I like it. Yeah.
What does Taravangian as the vessel of Odium think of Autonomy? Which Brendan raffled, but he says, he raffled it because it is going to be relevant.
So that obviously begs the question, how is it going to be relevant? Speculate.
I mean, it's sort of obvious, I think, that Odium held by Taravangian will stick around after book 5 or for some time because there's no way he'll only be a one book villain sort of.
That would be the worst.
So it's just I'm not sure if I think it's going to be back half stuff or if it's just for the greater Cosmere where it's going to be relevant. Yeah.
I don't know if we discussed it or I saw this on Discord, but I saw somehow it got in my brain that the letter in book 5 can be Taravangian as Odium writing letters. And that would be tight.
That'd be cool.
That'd be real tight. That'd be
I
awesome.
have not seen that, but I think it's really cool.
That's really cool.
Mhm.
Like, how would that relationship work with Bavadin, especially Taravangian trying to interface with Bavadin? Like, that's a whole ordeal in and of itself, really. But
Yeah. We don't quite have a confirmation that Odium and Autonomy have been working together, but there have been hints.
Mhm.
and that was the implication immediately. I felt
like if they're not enemies, which we have a WoB that.
I think there's enough implications that like there's, you know, they could have worked together. That would be very plausible.
And Era 2 sort of fits really nicely into this, like with it being around the time of the gap, probably between the Stormlight halves. So I can't quite. I have to read Era 2, but isn't it like that the assault by Trell is like becoming stronger now, or is it just that
No.
Sazed wasn't like it's just progressed enough now that it's becoming a real threat? Yes.
No,
I don't. It's
just that it comes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like there is a red mist invading.
Mhm.
Who knows what that is? It's scary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay tuned to 2022.
It would fit that, like, or it would make sense if Odium said that, okay, Autonomy, or if Taravangian said Autonomy, Bavadin, go ahead and maybe do something in Scadrial, because that harmony
or
is
reverse
scary.
Odium.
Stuff. Yeah. That could also be the case. Yeah.
Still think that's not plausible, but with Taravangian as Odium, it is more plausible, I feel.
I strongly think the red mist is a representation of Autonomy. Like I think a lot of the whole Trail storyline is Autonomy, and I also believe that Autonomy and Odium are, if not friends, then at least allies.
Mhm.
But I don't think we're going to see any direct Odium influence on Scadrial until Era 4, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, Autonomy and Odium could just be splitting up their targets, you know? So last but not least, and most recently, we sprinted to get these transcribed for our recording date. That said, this will be out quite a bit later than that, but you know what? we got a schedule. Is the Dusty Wheel interview with Matt interviewing Brandon, which was quite good. There was Wheel of Time stuff and some Cosmere stuff. And so we open with Liam asking some auto-raffos about what do, like, various metals in use in Fabrials, like Duralumin, Bendalloy, God metals, and Brandon's just like, yep, that is a big old raffo.
Yeah, and it's like, what are the elementic effects of other god metals? And it's like, he's not going to answer that.
No, he's never going to answer that. Yeah, that's totally true.
To paraphrase, Liam asked for a raffo 3 times.
Yep. Yup.
So this next one is from Blue Spirit Gem. It's like, when you write the Warbreaker sequel, we'll be more focused on Vivenna, Vasher, and Nightblood. And will we learn why they got separated and how Nail found Nightblood? That's the plan. It will definitely be Vivenna and Vasher. There will probably be mentions of Chiri and Susebron, but brief, which is consistent with what he said before. It's
Totally.
like we're always going to be...
Not the main
their
characters.
story arc is over. They won't have viewpoints. And then, yes, it will at least leave the implication of why what happened, if that makes sense. I may not get to the actual events, but you will see, yeah.
So something happens, and so it will be much clearer than it is now.
Because Brandon has mentioned a Warbreaker secret history before, which could be 5 Scholar stuff, or it could be how does Vasher, Vivenna, and Nightblood get to Roshar?
Excuse me, that's Vivenna.
Like, we checked your
Susebron?
out.
Yeah, same. I'm no none of this Vivenna, Brandon. I'm not a fan.
No.
Or like however he pronounced Susabron. I don't know.
Susabron,
I think.
Yeah. But it does at least explain why his nickname in world is Seb, not like Susie or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the way Brandon thinks of it is, so if you imagine Susabron written as S''Sebron.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And so you want to say Sebron, but there's an extra S in there.
Yeah.
So you have to be like Sebron or something like
that.
Yeah,
and like the U is devoiced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The second syllable is where the stress is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, that's weird, Brandon. That's what I say.
It is a remnant of like Mythwalker, where the names were written like that, and we have it in Titelier. It's still there, but yeah.
Cool.
Brandon's pronunciation wrong.
Yeah, no, Brandon is wrong about the wordbreaker pronunciations.
Yeah.
That's
Kelsier. No.
I will accept Kelsier before I accept Sebron or whatever.
Yep. Vivenna all the way. No Vivenna. No.
Hashtag
not Vivenna.
Let's move on to a question of Matt himself, the Dusty Wheel Innkeeper, who actually had a few questions about just character themes from Rhythm of War, but one that's more interesting was about whether Brandon was ever tempted to have Kaladin be taken in Odium.
Good question.
In Book 4. Which I assume is a reference to how we see Kaladin's eye glow yellow at one point. And it's like he's almost there, and obviously Odium wants Kaladin.
And Odium was pissed that it did not work.
Yeah. And Brian says, yes, I was tempted. To obviously, which Matt asks for clarification. And the essence of what Brandon says is that Kaladin is... So Kaladin is scary when... First of all, Kaladin is generally not scary. Kaladin is not like an overarching villain material. Kaladin is scary when he is protecting the people he wants to protect, and you are the one that he's protecting them from. Or when Kaladin gets pushed over the edge, so to speak. So in Rhythm of War, for example, personally for me, one of my favorite like little insignificant scenes is a thing where Kaladin is chasing a bunch of fused up the tower. He's snapped. He's just seen Teft die. And he's chasing the ones who have kidnapped his father. And there's a short scene where Kaladin sees a fused, or maybe it's a Rego, guarding a door. And then the next sentence is like, he left the fused broken behind. And so
that's such an evocative way to get through a fight scene.
Yeah, there's no description of what he's done. It's just he sees the fused is a pile of meat.
Yeah. That's so good to not do blow by blow. So good.
Yeah. That's where Kaladin is scary. And so that's not really like an overarching villain material, right? Ultimately it wouldn't have worked. However, one character who is potentially scary in an overarching villain way, says Brandon, is Dalinar.
Makes sense.
Which is ominous.
Yeah. Remember when we said earlier about maybe that other path was Dalinar just failing in Book 5 and succumbing to Odium? I feel like that could have been one of those plans. Yeah, and that like maybe now it's going to be different. Like it is weird, this idea of fused Dalinar, but I don't know.
But in the interest of objectivity, I want to read the last sentence of this because I don't think Brandon is making this as ominous as we are.
Oh, that's true. Yes, that's right.
And so Brandon says, but Kaladin as an overarching villain, I don't think that would be scary. Dalinar would be. Dalinar would be terrifying in that situation. But I don't think it would just add very much. If I were going to have one of them, it would have been Dalinar.
Past tense.
And so I think Brandon is just making a comparison for the sake of the comparison.
True. I concur with that.
that if Dalinar goes to the dark side, it's going to be some other avenue. Like becoming a fused.
Yeah, like that.
So the next question comes from our very, very own Joshua. Joshua. He asked whether the weird strata patterns in the Stone of Urithiru are a hallmark of stone shaping, which Brendan Rafford and called it stone warding.
I feel like that must just be. I feel like that just be like in his brain. He's called it stone warding, but then he's like, that probably isn't the best name now, but it's still in his brain, just like Silver Eye. Yeah.
Yep. But Raffo.
Yeah. We got to do a stone shaping podcast because that stuff is cool.
Yeah, we keep saying that.
I know. We'll get there eventually, probably, maybe. Look, by the time Lost Metal is in pre-release, then we'll only talk about Stormlight. So this next one is where Argent actually gets a question answered, so that's nice. And so he asks, with how important, or at least unique, autonomy seems in the Cosmere, are we going to see how Taldane is doing in more recent times? Excellent question. I've been wondering this. Brandon says, yes, you will. When? I'm not 100% sure. Shouldn't be too long, but it just depends on a couple things, right? Can I get the Silverlight story written? How do things go with Isaac? He's been playing around with Taldane and doing things there, and we're just not sure. Cool.
I'm not sure that completely answers my question. So
no, it doesn't. Not at all, really. But that's okay.
I don't see how Isaac's involvement with the White Sand graphic novel reveals anything about like contemporary Taldane, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the Silverlight novella might.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more just like Brandon has a limited amount of bandwidth. And if Isaac was helping with that, Brandon would still need to do like brainstorming and, and spending effort doing that and figuring out specifics, right? And he doesn't have time.
Maybe it's like, because they've been talking about the dark side graphic novels as well, like doing something there. So
that could
if those work well, then Isaac might even I think Isaac would be the one mainly doing those as well. So if those work well, we might get something that shows us like what is Taldane up to these days. Yeah.
Or like those Darksider graphic novels like might set things up for why Taldane gets cut off from the rest of the Cosmere, which would provide limited information on what it's doing now based off like this is the direction it was heading.
Yep.
This next one is from Ori, who asks, does a vessel who ascended from the same world influenced by a shard have less control over that shard than a vessel from another world? Brandon, I do not. I'm going to say no for now.
Probably just means his headcanon about what he thinks and,
yeah,
that sort of thing.
Because in large part, that's what makes it possible to pick up a shard. So it's like if you're not from that shard, you don't have an intrinsic connection to that shard. So it's like, how are you connected to that shard in order to be picked up by it?
Yeah. Then our next question comes from Rodrigo, whose last name I couldn't catch on stream, so I'm sorry if you're listening. Asks about the difference between so let me frame this because there's a lot going on. Mistborn Era 2, allomantic grenades, the ones where you do allomancy and you throw the grenade, the primer cube, and it
does that
broadcasts the effect. Yeah. So
not its intended purpose, but
well, kind of.
I mean, it's Brandon's intended purpose. I don't think it's the Malwish intended purpose because it's very much prime this cube to get the big machine going.
Yeah, but it does exactly the same thing in the airships, right? Like the idea there is you essentially prime the cube with, let's say, steel allomancy so you can lift off.
Yes, I'm saying it's not intended to be a grenade.
Yes.
It broadcasts allomancy. That is
Yes.
its intended purpose.
Yes. Okay.
It's not meant to be a weapon.
Yes. But because it is used as a weapon, Rodrigo asks, what's the difference between an aluminum and chromium grenade and the difference between nitrosil and duralumin?
Oh, yeah.
So before we go into Brandon's answer, the allomantic effect of aluminum is it consumes all your other metals, right? It instantaneously just burns them all.
Correct.
That is
Including
internal for you.
Yeah.
Chromium has exactly the same effect, but you are burning other people's
It's
metals.
external.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And the same relationship is the one we see between nitrosil and duralumin. When you burn duralumin, any other metals you burn are instantly consumed for an amplified effect. And when you burn nitrosil, you are essentially giving the duralumin effect to other people.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And
that's
so
right.
the question is, how does this internal-external thing work when you are throwing a grenade at somebody? To which Brandon doesn't answer that question at all.
It's hard to have a concrete question and like that's like short and pithy, but you know.
Yeah.
The answer he gives is interesting.
Yeah, but he does talk about some interesting things. Specifically, aluminum would create a sort of you can't use allomancy in nearby this grenade, most likely, and duralumin would do the opposite. You would be able to use it and then enhance someone. And he talks a little bit about how he hasn't played with the ranges of these things. And then his intent for kind of where this whole thing is going with the grenades is to get to a point where you could theoretically be an aluminum gnat, which if you can only burn aluminum, you're useless. There's no effect for you. Asterisk. And so you could charge up a grenade and throw it, and then you are negating other Metalborn's talents where you throw the grenade. So where your ability was previously completely useless, now you're making other people completely useless, which is super convenient in combat, right? So that's where he wants to go with these grenades. He wants all the Metalborn powers to be relevant in some way in the future. And then he goes on and talks a little bit about Marcy, but we've seen how her power can be used in exactly this way, right? So she can either trap other people with her own... what's her metal?
Cadmium
speed bubble. Or she can charge up a cadmium speed bubble and throw it, and like she herself is fine, but she's trapping someone there.
Yeah.
All time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting because allomancy very much has like an internal versus external sort of aspect to it, you know?
So I don't think there will be a difference. I think this is going to be similar how in Fabrials, like we have like the conjoined Fabrials and we have the reverser Fabrials. But then once you add aluminum into the mix, like you can just rearrange things and they both do effectively the same thing. Whereas like once you start going into like hacking the magic, like some things end up being very similar.
You find multiple ways of achieving the same thing.
I think at least between aluminum and chromium, there might still be a difference because like aluminum is a bubble sort of effect or area of effect that prevents you from using your allomancy. It's like how Brandon phrased it here, and maybe chromium would be that you actually get your metals still get drained away, like if you were actually to use chromium sunroom.
No, but didn't Wax's metals just get burned away? He said all of his stores went away.
I don't think we know if that's aluminum or chromium, technically.
Okay, fair, but they did. His stores did go away in that train scene. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. So it's like chromium would remove the stores, and aluminum would just inhibit your ability to inhibit your abilities. Does that make sense? Like You'd have to.
Yes, it makes sense. I just don't like it.
Yeah, because they should have the ability that it says, right?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like Brandon as a writer, because this makes Chromium objectively more powerful than aluminum.
It does, yeah.
And I think Brandon would want to avoid that. So I think there are ways around that, right? So maybe you can say, well, with aluminum, you throw that somewhere and it automatically just drains. Well, no. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to balance, well, aluminum has a weaker effect, but maybe, you know what? Maybe it's just a much larger bubble.
Yeah, it could be a larger bubble. I don't know if you guys recall, but in my brain, I have it in my brain that for Nigrosil or something, you have to be actually touching the person.
Yes.
Yeah, Chromium and Nigrosil, you have to touch.
You have to touch them. So like it could simply be that maybe the grenade has to touch you. I don't know. But like they all sort of do bubbles, right?
Feels like, because since aluminum is the internal one, it feels like that's the one that should have to touch somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas like Chromium and Nigrosil are external, like they should have to bubble. But and aluminum has a bubble, so
it is, as like Brandon says himself in this swap, like he only did it for metals that do have an area of effect right now. Like you could say like steel or steel and steel pushing, iron pulling do have a sort of area of effect, or like they directly do something.
But he didn't though. But he did it with either aluminum or chromium in Bands of Warning. Like, he did do that.
I'm pretty sure it's chromium, right?
No, we don't know. We don't know.
It's not explicitly stated.
Really?
It's just, it's used against wax.
Like
he
a
doesn't
chromium
know.
person touched me.
Okay, wow. I thought we had that.
He doesn't even know what it is.
They describe it as chromium because that's all they know.
Yeah,
it could be aluminum.
I thought we knew that they also touched somebody at some point. Okay, but sure.
I don't recall.
I don't think so.
Yeah, true. Like I said, I need to reread.
yeah. There's a lot in Bands of Morning, let me tell you.
A surprising lot, actually.
I could probably reread it and also grab more things out of it.
Then I literally have no idea how like Brendan wants to.
I don't know. They might do the same thing.
But I mean, he's got time, right?
Totally got time.
Bendalloy and cadmium. Bendalloy seems a lot more useful in combat for the most part, but it also burns faster and it's a smaller bubble. So,
right. So like chromium could be more useful, but like maybe you use a lot more chromium, whereas aluminum or maybe not or something. I don't know.
Okay, so here's the thing that I tried to say before and I couldn't phrase. Maybe with chromium, it only drains your metals if you are burning a metal at the time. So like if you know that somebody's throwing a chromium grenade at you, you can be just like, okay, I will wait the 15 seconds this grenade is gonna last, and then I get my metals back and I can do whatever I want. Whereas with aluminum, it kind of has the same thing where you still can't use your metals during that time. But like if you try, it doesn't drain them. It's just, well, now I can't use metals for a minute, or I need to leave the area of the grenade. But there's no risk of you actually losing your metals.
I mean, that could be true, but I mean, maybe.
I'm still like hammering at like the different balancing ideas.
Sure.
But actually, what I'm really interested in is like what tin and pewter would look like, because like
what does that even mean? Like that's very weird.
Yeah, these other metals still like they still like not physically, but they like change something that you could feasibly change externally easily, and these other ones like. How?
Like zinc and brass, I kind of get how those going to go. They're soothing in an area, brass in an area.
Yeah.
Copper and bronze are pretty easy too. I mean, bronze is kind of weird.
Bronze.
It's like
copper is easy because it just creates a cloud.
Yeah, it just makes a copper cloud.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was thinking ferrochemy. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
And the important thing is like, not everything is going to be useful for the allomantic grenade part of this. Like, like this is not the extent of like mechanical allomancy,
and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, All I know is that there's going to be lots of crazy crap Brandon can justify with that, whatever allomantic effect he wants.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Stormlight is kind of my baby, but also Mistborn Era 3, Era 4, so much fun, wacky stuff.
It's going to be pretty crazy.
So, next question.
Going
Jeremy
great.
We're almost
If
done.
vast amounts of investiture can distort time in a similar manner as a black hole, as we discussed in the last episode, does that include shards? Would time dilation be greater on Roshar than on Nalthis? To which Brandon said that no, because the shard is contained almost entirely in the spiritual realm. In the spiritual realm, time and distance have no meaning. So what this means is large piles of investiture that somehow make it into the cognitive realm or the physical realm are going to cause the time dilation, but the spiritual realm, where it belongs, that investiture, it's not going to do that, and that's going to make some exclamation points raise above the heads of some people.
I think our chat, several people went, and then like Maury, who wasn't watching, is like, what was it? This was pretty funny. So I'm sorry, Maury.
I would like to point out,
yes.
Brandon was completely aware of what he was doing. Like if you listen to this, because this is from an audio interview, you can listen to that. He goes, large piles of investiture that somehow make it into the cognitive realm or the physical. Like
he's clearly emphasizing the cognitive one.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
And
at that
it was
moment.
funny, Matt just being like, he just didn't. Like it didn't grok for him. Like but welcome to Shardcast, where we will tell you what we think. So the obvious implication is, well, on Sel, in that subastral, there's a lot of investitures. So there could be a lot of time dilation effect there.
Yeah. And it's
So, go ahead, Ian.
Does it translate across the realms? Is the physical realm on Sel like
we did have that
swirling?
gravity thing in the last one.
we did.
Yeah, that's true.
The interesting thing that I was gonna go for was, well, Elantris is super early in the Cosmere timeline.
I think you're thinking the same thing, yeah.
I saw a light bulb above your head, and I'm like, And so that might be a way to kind of sync up Elantris to more recent events. And so, if you guys have seen Interstellar, there's a plot point there where the characters go near a black hole. So to explain time dilation, if you are in the most simple way I can think of is if you are in an area with a large mass or large gravity, which are kind of the same thing, or in this case, large amount of investiture,
or if you're burning cadmium.
Let's not do that. Time passes more slowly for you than it passes for the outside world. So one day for you is going to be multiple days for people elsewhere. And so let's say Elantris is 1,000 years before, I don't know, Scadrial, Mistborn Era 1. You can have only 100 years pass on Elantris for the 1,000 years that pass on somewhere else. And that kind of allows you to catch up the Elantris story, to fast forward the Elantris timeline to a more modern Cosmere time.
I don't know how much it would affect the physical, but I'm just like thinking about Galadon, right? Like Galadon, like moving through that cognitive realm, like he could have exited many, many, many years after. And like, so he is kind of immortal, but like the door, it's weird, you know, but regardless,
does it really work when you were in Roshar?
Yeah. But regardless, like he could have just like 100 or 1,000 years could have passed outside and he didn't experience them at all. I find that very plausible.
And I think it also has very interesting implications for the Weiry, because if like the time outside would have passed faster, so they might be ancient on Sel, but outside they're actually like not that ancient, right?
Less experienced than it seems. Sure.
Well, I mean, so that depends on how you frame these terms, right? So let's say the Weiry.
That pun was so great, but also so awful, Evgeni. You have to know that I'm like, oh, that was good, but also terrible. If you're in physics, frame of reference. That was the joke for you.
Like the Weiry, let's say a new member of the Weiry, like the also beautiful ones guy from
I know.
From Elantris.
Right, I know. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So he can get dunked into Devotion's shard pool perpendicularity and spend, I don't know, like 10 years just hanging out with the other Weiry around the very investiture dense Selish subastral. And then he can go to Roshar. And so when he goes to Roshar, he's not ancient. He's 10 years older than what he was in the physical realm, but more time has passed in the Cosmere. So like he can get dunked around the time of the last desolation, but then he goes to Roshar and it's like 10 years later.
Yeah, totally plausible. With the Weiry in particular, it depends how much time they're spending around Sel. Like their fortress is not near there, so like there the time would be essentially normal. One other thing with this one, I think it was Roshar, but someone in our Discord chat as this was happening had the idea that maybe the spiritual realm being timeless is because all the investiture is stacked there. And I'm like, because like if there's effectively infinite time dilation in a sense, and I'm like, I kind of like that. That feels quite intuitive to me.
So I don't think that works at all.
Okay.
I'm with you.
I like the sentiment.
I like the sentiment. Yeah.
But time dilation doesn't mean that time doesn't pass. So like causation is not violated.
Yeah, that's true. You're totally right. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So
you need more powerful spiritual mumbo jumbo to make the Cosmere work. It's true. You're not wrong. Yeah. You're not wrong.
And so what's happening in the spiritual realm is that causation is violated a little bit because all places and all times are in a way one. How exactly that works is unclear.
Yeah.
But you don't have event A and then event B and then event C.
Right.
You kind of have A, B, and C stacked on top of one another. And so if you have time dilation, A, B, and C still happen in the same order. It just takes a different amount of time
just
for
compressed
that to happen.
Or something.
Or stretched.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm trying to think of the point I'm trying to make is actually a point. Or it's just words.
I don't know.
How
pointy is it?
Because it's just like, it's not that like time and distance don't exist in the spiritual realm. It's that they have no meaning in the spiritual realm. It's just like, yes, like, sure, like maybe it like dilates a whole bunch. Doesn't change the fact that time has no meaning.
I think the way I think of it is that in the spiritual realm, the future is still the future. It still hasn't happened. But unlike in the physical realm or the cognitive realm, you can interact with it in some ways.
Yeah. Well, spiritual mumbo jumbo, man. That
TLDR, spiritual mumbo jumbo.
Yep.
It is just interesting how all the investiture is in the spiritual, though. So, like, I feel like there can be a relationship between those two, though, rather than it like actually being time dilation. You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because like the time dilation wouldn't make sense in the spiritual, but like. It's a little piece of the spiritual realm.
It's in the spiritual realm because it's safest there. Because anywhere else, it's going to cause time dilation.
I got it, guys. I got it. The reason there is time dilation is because when you have so much investiture into a realm that is different from the spiritual, it brings some of that spiritual timelessness with it.
Yeah. So it's the other way around. It's because the spiritual realm. Like, it's not the time dilation to the spiritual realm. It's the converse of that. Nice.
I genuinely can't tell if this is serious or if you're just
I somewhat.
So like it could be, but
I had that thought too, though, about the converse, the reverse. It's like this is why investiture is that way.
it started as a joke, but then halfway through, I'm like, but what if?
Yeah,
and
but
that's why, and now I think I'm joking, but also I'm not completely sure. That is why mass dilates time in the physical because of the mass energy equivalence
And
mass
energy. And
mass
that's
energy investiture.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it all comes from the spiritual realm.
just want to explain
Yes.
everything away with spiritual.
I hate this.
So if you're just listening, we've been recording a long time. So it's great to get to this one at the second to last.
Yes.
Let's do it in chronological order.
Let's do the next question.
Let's do the last one. The last one. Final one. Questioner asks, how much should we be thinking about possible logical groupings of shards? For instance, as pairs or groups of 4. Go ahead, knock yourselves out. This is relevant, but only in a sort of Cosmere not boo sort of way. People who like theorizing on these things and whatnot. It's not going to be hugely relevant to the narrative, but Dawn Shard does indicate that these groupings are a place you can go.
Mhm.
Don't like the term Cosmere not. Let's not use it. So listeners, boo, no Cosmere not. You heard it here. But yeah, so it's not going to be super important, but there will be connections and groupings, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can put them into groups. It's not relevant to the plot of anything.
Yet.
Yeah. My read is essentially, you know how ruin and preservation are associated with the colors black and white?
Uh-huh.
And so there is something there in that ruin and preservation are opposed and black and white are traditionally opposite quote unquote colors. But what are you going to do with that information? Like, it has no bearing to the plot. And so
Yeah, right. Sure.
similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, ruin and cultivation are both like associated with the changed on shard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. It doesn't actually matter, but like there are some parallels that we could grab.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's interesting when you're like looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
Like
On Shardcast.
Dalinar doesn't care. Like that's not relevant to anything he's trying to do.
No.
Yeah.
Mhm. Like even in the big picture, we currently know one Dawn Shard, so
Yeah.
making more groupings is like we can like see similarities between the shards, but extrapolating the Dawn Shard from that is
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Having the 4 Dawn Shards would really help making that easier.
Mhm.
And we're not going to get that for a long time.
Mhm. And like we don't even know what the Dawn Shards really are or were in the like. So yeah.
Trell
this
is a
reminds
Dawn
me-
Shard.
No,
Boom.
don't say that.
No. Don't put that in here. No,
The
we don't
Craftsman,
need to go
Trell the
there.
Craftsman. He personally found a Dawn Shard.
Yeah. It was in one of the buildings he was building.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's always dawn on Taldane.
Somewhere.
On the day side.
Well, and the
Yeah, I guess it'd have to be in the ring. Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh-huh.
all of this reminds me of one, and I guess the two things are related. The way metals are categorized in the metallic arts. So internal, external, pushing, pulling, and then in ferrochemy you have all the quadrants, and in hemallurgy we have all the quadrants.
Mm.
And
We also have the quadrants in Allomancy.
sure. And the periodic table of metals, like the actual periodic table of elements, not metals.
Elements, yeah.
Where, so the fact that you know that these elements are, let's say, temporal metals in ferrochemy, or the fact that you know that these metals are
In Allomancy.
There are no
one of the metallic arts, whatever.
spiritual there, I think.
I don't care. They're all the same in the spiritual realm.
Yep, that's right.
Or the fact that you know that these metals are alkalines in the actual table of elements. it tells you some things about the similarities between these metals or these elements, but it's not like
It doesn't mean anything.
yeah. There is something fundamental about that, but it's not meaningful to like the plot of a story or your life.
It's sort of like it's descriptive, not prescriptive in a way. Like you impose some structure on them. Like you see, okay, these are similar, and hence I put them in this group. But it's not. It was designed this way.
Yeah,
in a way.
The thing it makes me think of is my AP Chem class. We were learning about gas, like the ideal gas law, and it's like why does like pressure differentials, and it's like why do things happen? And it's like there is no why, just do.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So it's like yes, like there may be a pattern to the shards. There might be a why because it's related to the Dawn shards, but there is nothing deeper than that. Like that's just the way it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
I would like to say you said ideal gas law, and my mind immediately went into like spiritual ideal of things.
I mean, that's basically what the ideal gas law does.
It's the ideal
because it's like.
Yep.
Okay, let's do who's that Cosmere character.
This character is from Roshar.
Menace, Tien,
Tom,
Braze.
Hoid in drag on a horse.
It's time for who's that Cosmere character. Caw. All right, welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game show where you send 5 clues and a character to WTCC at 17shard.com. And the character they correspond to. I think I didn't do that last time. And these guys have a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. All right, so this first one is sent by Story Spren, but not the Story Spren on 17shard, on Reddit and YouTube. So cool.
Huh.
Someone already had it on 17shard, so it's not that person. Clue 1. This character is seen on Roshar.
Felt.
It's not felt.
So I will burn a guess for the sake of a joke.
Okay.
So here's how this is gonna go. Okay, this character is seen on Roshar.
Mm-hmm.
Seen on Alay.
It's not that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it a race as Odium?
Oh no, it's not. All right. Clue 2. This character is male. Classic 2 clues. Slightly different though.
Demo.
It's not Demo.
I will copy the spirit of these guesses and go with Galadon.
It's not Galadon.
Is it Naz?
It's not Naz. Clue 3. This character is very observant.
Are you sure it's not Naz?
It's not Naz.
Bayon.
It's not Bayon.
I am not even going to consider whether this fits the clues, but I'll say Rhino.
I mean, the other clues are seen on Roshar and male, so like this is not a high bar.
Well, I wouldn't say he's very observant.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. It's not right, I know.
Yeah, okay. Didn't think so. Just trying to think of world hoppers.
Mm-hmm.
Really latching onto that clue 1.
Yeah.
Adolin.
It's not Adolin. Clue 4. This will be actually helpful. This character is a part of Bridge 4.
Oh. Observant.
Zixel?
It's not Sigzil.
Lopen?
It's not Lopen.
Relaine?
It's not Relaine. Clue 5. This character is not a Windrunner.
Renarin?
Renarin.
Yeah, it is Renarin.
Too late,
Kenny gets it.
weary writer.
To be honest, I was thinking Renarin. I'm like,
Rip.
I mean, I was
just
thinking, was thinking
I
around
like
on
that the
last
first clue just totally made you guys think world hoppers. It's like, I mean,
Yeah.
I was
Every
actually going
Roshar.
to, I was thinking of debit now for the last one, but
true.
would have worked. Yeah.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
All right. This next one is sent by Amon Kohler. And clue 1, this character was in the Alethi war camps.
Renarin.
It's not Renard.
Naz.
It's not Nas.
Sibarial. Sibarial.
No, it's not Sabarial. Clue 2, this character is light-eyed.
Graves.
It's not Graves.
Yakimov.
Yeah, it's not Yakimov.
I'm trying to think of something clever, but what is the?
In the Alethi war camps.
I'm just going to assume he's light-eyed. The new Natanan ambassador.
Aunak?
Aunak, right?
It's not Outnock. Yeah, I knew that name. Yeah. Clue 3, this character has a very distinct appearance.
The Donlan Maracuthia.
It's not.
I'm sorry, what?
Donlan.
It's Donlan.
Oh, Danlan, okay. Very distinct appearance. Sill.
It's not Sil. I mean, I guess she'd technically be light eyes, I guess.
Yeah, I want to make a similar guess, but I won't. Hoid.
It's not Hoid.
Okay.
Clue 4. This character had direct contact with an unmade.
Amaram?
It's not Amram. But that's a good guess. That's true.
What the hell?
You're like, oh, I feel like that would narrow it down a lot, but
I mean, so I was getting ready to guess one of the horses.
That was my intention.
yeah, because it was the light eye one. Yeah, that's
Can
right.
you rephrase the clue? Say the clue again.
Clue 4. This character had direct contact with an unmade.
I know who it is.
I hate that.
Okay, well, now I'm no longer thinking about clues, and I'm thinking like Ian.
Yeah.
What if
I'm gonna
he's
get
wrong,
in his
though?
head. Well,
I mean,
then-
it's very possible I'm wrong because this happens a lot where I'm like, oh, I don't, and the next clue like destroys
okay,
it.
Mhm.
so
Let's go through the unmade.
yeah, we can't do
Shamoresh. Digonarthus.
So Yelignar would either be Amaram or
Oh my god.
I forget the name. The queen.
Nergal. Oh,
So and she wasn't in the war camp, so she's not.
I mean, she
it.
went there like a few times.
I'm so sorry, listeners. We've been recording so long. It's like, what we need to do is we need to list out all the unmade and we'll process of elimination this. Yeah.
The thing is, like, pretty much all of the Alethi light eyes have been in contact with the thrill.
Yeah, but direct contact is like
I mean, that's like the thrill sticking its tentacles in you.
and very distinctive appearance.
Navani.
It's not Navani. Wait, which one made was she had direct contact
Yeah.
with?
So
she would have held the.
my
King's drop
assumption
with the
is
thrill.
that she actually got to play with the King's drop a little
Yeah.
bit.
Oh wait.
Oh, yeah. Off screen, maybe.
Unfortunately.
My guess has bifurcated. I now have
Whoa.
two guesses.
Oh.
I'm really hoping.
Yeah, I'm going to guess Delanar because.
Not Dalnar.
Okay, good.
All right. Clue 5.
No.
Clue 5. Their death greatly troubled the protagonist.
Oh, it's not who I was thinking.
Who were you thinking?
I was gonna guess Shallan, so not Shallan.
Veil died.
Can you read the first clue to me again?
This character was in the Alethi war camps.
Okay.
How about I just read them all?
Yes.
This
yeah,
character
that
is light-eyed, has a very distinct appearance, had direct contact with an unmade, and their death greatly troubled a protagonist. So for the
Veil.
listener, yes.
I'm
What?
going to guess Whale.
It's not Veil. For the listeners, we cut out a lot of white space here. A lot of it.
More white space incoming.
It's like, I have a guess, but I can't. Like, the unmade. I'm like, what unmade?
Yeah.
Direct contact. Let's just say direct contact.
Yeah, that sounds very direct, doesn't it?
I would definitely agree. Direct contact.
Very distinct appearance.
I can't remember what color his eyes are.
Okay.
Probably right.
What do
Wait,
you got?
it's seen in the Alethi war camps.
Mhm.
Well,
Yep.
clue one was in the Alethi war camps,
Okay.
not seen in.
Okay.
I don't think that practically matters, but I thought I would just be clear.
So the thing is, no, it's not.
Distinct appearance.
So I really wanted to make the Sil case again, right? Because she kind of died at the end of Words of Radiance, so and it was very distressing to Kaladin, but I already guessed Sil, right?
It's like I have two guesses, but they don't. Neither one quite works.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Direct
Direct
Yeah,
contact.
I know I can't guess anymore, but I'm still.
No, that one seems important. Like how many
Very
characters
direct.
being-
Yeah. And also, like, there's not that many unmade that anyone could have had contact with, so.
That's true.
and they need to have died.
They're dead. Yes,
True,
that's
yeah.
true. Yes.
I'm gonna guess Odium. I'm assuming he was in the Alethi war camp at some point.
It's not Odium.
Okay.
It's not Odium.
If it's the other one, I'm going to be very mad. But I
What
don't
was your-
think that
What's your other one?
character. I
No,
mean,
I-
Argent
I-
hasn't gone yet.
Okay.
so-
Okay. Well, I do want to know before I reveal it.
Okay. Now there's pressure on me to actually guess something in a
No.
Yeah.
fashion.
All this white space just totally getting cut as you just stare off into space.
I am quite good at that.
Stare off into lasting integrity in Paleo's background. Maybe they'll have
I
answers.
can let you see the Shadesman
Oh yeah.
sky.
Oh yeah, give it a sky. So I wouldn't say that any Spren have actually died that are relevant for this, which is one route that I was going for.
Yeah.
Now, among the unmade, has anyone who's been in touch with Baru Mishram died? I mean, the Spren that I just said haven't.
Also, like, direct contact with Biodemishram.
Yeah.
In recent times, I think that would have been quite hard.
Yeah. I wanted to guess Eshonai, but I don't think her eyes are light.
Oh yeah,
Surprisingly
your other
low
guess is
number.
also wrong.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you message it to me. We'll reveal it in a second, but it's definitely not. Direct contact.
Yeah.
I'm going to write you a guess as well.
Okay.
The sad thing is, even if my guess was right, I still wouldn't win. Who's that Cosmere character?
It's true.
Oh, I'm checking whether the unmade fits this. No, it actually.
I mean, I didn't. I just made a guess.
Okay.
There's no direct content there. Come on, Argent. I want to eat dinner.
Same. No, you're also wrong, Paleo.
Okay. I'm actually not quite sure. I have to look it up if it's actually light.
It's funny how there's like literally like an entire route that like no one's even considered on this. I'm very amused.
I just realized my Veil guess was pretty dumb because she's like she specifically dark-eyed.
Oh, you know what's
dark-eyed
funny about
persona.
that one that you just messaged, Ian? That's the one Paleo just
Okay.
said. That's really funny.
Let's just go.
Hey, Sudan.
It's not Aesidon. The answer is someone murdered by Ray Shafir, Vedekar Perel.
Oh,
None of you even thought. This is direct contact. He's killed.
So, I thought of Reshafir,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, well, the only characters she's been in contact with are like the party that went and like
No.
sent her. Yeah,
That's why I thought Shalon is like she had very direct contact.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Ian messaged me Sureblood, then Paleo messaged me Zeph, and then Ian also messaged me Seth.
I was thinking about Sureblood because like his death, really affected Adon, but
Yeah.
the
Direct
unmade.
contact with an unmade, yeah. It's very direct.
Yeah.
Killed by Ray Shafir personally.
Yeah,
I-
but the impact
Was it-
on-
I was also
He
thinking
was
about
killed by
Richard Fear, like,
a midnight essence. We don't know what a midnight essence is. Just saying.
I think this is fine.
I think this is fine.
my
You
my
could
mind
say
actually also went,
the Midnight Mother killed them, and you'd be like, yeah, that is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
my mind actually also went like, did anybody bring, or did Delena bring anybody to the vision with the midnight essence, and did they get killed by it? Because like, could that have been? But
Yeah.
Apparently, Vedekar Perel has bulbous features.
I do not recall
Similar
that
to
character at all.
Sadius. Well, that
so
was,
the-
I think, the second person, like, that was the copycat murder that Adolin was investigating at the beginning of Oathbringer, which was why it greatly disturbed him. But I'm
The
just
only
amused, like,
reason-
no one even said Ray Shafir at all. Nothing even like
I mean, we guessed in connection to Ray Shafir.
Yeah,
I guess Shalon. Well,
Yeah, I guess
I
that's true.
alluded
I
to
guess that's
my guess being Shalon.
I guess that's true. I guess that's true. Not to be confused with the field commander Perel, who may or may not be the same person as Vedekar
Yes.
Perel. It's very
Yes.
unclear. I know we've had lots of debates in our Coppermine Keeper chat as to whether this person is the same or not as that person. But
The only reason I know of Vedekar Perel is because of these debates.
excellent. Well, I mean, that wasn't like XTs. So, like, that was an actual character. They died. It mattered for the
Yeah.
plot. You know.
I mean, it was a
I
good
wouldn't say it's like
set
it was
of clues.
important for a character.
Well, Adolin was very disturbed that there was a copycat murder and was just like, this isn't possible. What? But yeah.
I will allow it on a technicality.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Well, thanks for that one. Thanks for watching. You can find us on 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. We'll be back not next week, but the week after, because we got 2 in a row for these WoBs. And so we'll be back to our bi-weekly schedule, but we didn't want you to wait 2 more weeks to finish up the words of Brandon. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube. You can like on YouTube. You can leave a comment on YouTube. Did you remember Vedekar Perel? Put in the comments whether you did. It's like, no clue. Never heard of him. I imagine most people like never, no idea. Have to Google it and get to the Coppermine to learn anything. You can leave us a review on iTunes, and you can also support us on Patreon. And we will see you all next time.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.